The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJX, its board, staff, or underwriters.
Good day. You are listening to Ability Radio, brought to you by the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands. I am Amelia Hedy Lamont, one of your hosts, and today I am joined by DRCVI's newest executive director, Angus Drigo. Good day, Angus Drigo.
Good day, Amelia.
How are you?
Happy to see you. I am doing great.
Well, we, in a previous show, had the benefit of talking to the new executive director of the National Disability Rights Network. Her name is Marlena Saggio, and we thought it would be good for our community to know what is the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands.
Oh, it's a great question. We are similar to the national organization. We are a protection advocacy agency. We provide legal rights for people with disabilities, ensuring that their rights are protected, that there's no abuse, neglect, or any violation of their rights. We also provide support for families with individuals or children with disabilities through our parent support centers, both here and in St. Thomas.
Excellent.
We're also part of, like I said, the network, National Disability Rights Network. And we're part of the 57, I think.
Right.
57 of us. Yeah,
Right, that's right.
throughout the U.S. and the territories.
Now, the protection and advocacy, if you might hear us sometimes say P&A, that's what it stands for. It began, I'd say in the late 60s, and this came as a result of a scandal in Staten Island at a facility that housed persons with developmental disabilities.
Yes.
And at the time, Congress said, no, this is not correct, because people were treated in such a inhumane way. Children and young adults were, food was thrown at them. They weren't cleaned. They didn't have any kind of support or training, or they were not treated as human beings. So Congress decided, in its infinite wisdom at the time, to create a system. And that's what the protection and advocacy system is. And it's been in existence now for several years.
Yeah. And for those that want to go back to that point, that turning point, I think it was Geraldo Rivera.
Right.
So you could basically go and research that and see how people with disabilities were treated.
Right.
And really in a really inhumane way.
Right. What is the data? Do we have any sense of generally how many people are we talking about when we talk about disabilities?
Well, if you think about people with disabilities, I'm in the studio talking to you and I have my glasses on. Without that, I wouldn't be able to function, go out to drive. I could see at a certain distance. That's a disability. So when you start to talk about numbers, you're talking about quite a few people.
Right.
The last census in 2010 had some data, but we've not seen anything for the Virgin Islands from the 2020 census.
Right.
We've been searching the website, looking for things. The government has, on their own, taken up the mantle of trying to determine how many of their employees are people with disabilities. And that the verdict on that is still out.
Okay,
so they're still gathering information. We work with the ADA coordinator to find out where they are in the process, but they're still gathering some of that data.
When we say the ADA coordinator, we mean the Americans with Disabilities Act coordinator, who is Julian
Henley. Yes.
So back in 2010, if I'm not mistaken, the figures were roughly 9.8% of the total population self-identified as being a person with a disability. And when we say a disability, we mean an individual who is limited in some substantial way.
Yes.
Doing any kind of gainful activity. Such as walking. Reading, going to the bathroom, listening. That's right. Speaking. Yeah. I mean, so it has a very broad application, very broad application. Very broad. The other thing we like to mention is it's a group that you can join at any moment, right?
You're one step away, I always say to everybody.
Right. Right. And as sadly the situation with the pro football player
Yes.
learned, right?
Yeah.
That's not to say he won't come out of this,
Right,
but it's
but that's really and in the VI, there's a lot of stigma attached to disability, and it shouldn't be that way. Part of our goal and mine personally is to help remove that stigma.
what do we mean by stigma?
Well, when you talk about people with disability, we should treat them as, I don't want to use the word regular, but as somebody without a disability. So when you look at them, you're not seeing that disability.
You see the person.
You see the person. Right. So with me, and this is where we need to get. Wearing my glasses, somebody's looking at me, they're not thinking about disability at all. And that's where we need to head.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. Stigma also comes up with regard to mental health services.
Mental health services as well, because and that's a big one for us, because the governor has declared the Virgin Islands a mental health emergency for the Virgin Islands, and that was in his first term, and I think that still stands. So that's a big part of it, because when you go to the doctor, you're not just going for the other parts, everything below your neck.
Right.
This, your head is involved too. And that's a really important piece, because in our society, there's that stigma associated with it. And what you find is, not because you have a mental illness, you cannot be gainfully employed or be a very important person in the community. That's just another part of your body.
Right.
That has a disability, and that's all that is.
And I think part of the learning curve is that there are a number of people who have arguably a mental illness who have been incredibly productive.
Very much so.
Such as Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There are a variety of people.
Yeah.
And in fact, in one year, we had a display of persons with disabilities who, are supremely talented. Frida Kahlo, for example, is one. Trying to remember, I think there was a runner, Wilma Rudolph, I believe.
Yeah. There are many people. I mean,
Usain Bolt.
Yeah. My
the runner.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. My mom's ex-husband, Blinky, Sylvester McIntosh, he had a visual disability.
Okay.
Amazing saxophonist.
So
there are a lot of people locally. Our ADA coordinator, Julian Henley,
phenomenal.
He uses a wheelchair.
Yeah. No, and he's done phenomenal work.
And he's done phenomenal work.
Right.
And advancing the rights of individuals, providing access, which is a big thing.
Right.
For people with disabilities.
Well, one of the things we want to impress upon the audience is how important it is to create an inclusive community, right?
Yes.
And there are certain advantages that the overall community has benefited from through the disability community, such as...
Closed caption. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Right.
You're watching this movie and you're trying to figure out what
do they say? Right. So you could read now.
You could read now.
Right.
And all of that originated because of creating different means of having or including people with disability as part of the overall community.
And we use closed captioning a lot.
Yes, we do. We do. And we have to, because we want to be inclusive with everything that we're doing.
Right.
So we wanna take advantage of all of that.
What? Give me some other examples.
Another example is remote work.
Right.
Especially during the pandemic.
Right.
We as an organization, we had to become very nimble. Some folks had to work from home. And the Caribbean as it is, people want to come to your office to tell you their story as to what's happening.
Right.
That was something new for folks. People had to go on Zoom to get some of the training that we offered.
Right.
But it also ushered some new ways of looking at things. We have what's called our employer roundtable, where we connect people with disability and other job seekers with employers, not just in the private sector, but in the public sector as well. So it has evolved and it has produced some really important pieces in the community.
Well, you're mentioning remote work because initially it was viewed as a way of hiring persons with disabilities who may have had a hardship or not inclined to work in an office setting.
Yes.
And now I think, well, more employers are more amenable
Yes.
to remote learning.
To remote work.
Ramps. That's another thing.
That's
right?
another. I mean, that's the part of the access that we mentioned a little earlier on. And if you look, let's just talk about locally.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at our towns, Frederickstead, Christiansted.
Mm-hmm.
If you're visually impaired, it's very hard for you
Right.
because some of the cobblestones, some of the areas that have bricks are missing.
Right.
I took a tour in Frederickstead and I only did 2 streets, Waterfront and the next street.
Mm-hmm.
And I passed on that information to the AD coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very hard to traverse
Right.
as somebody with this. And they repaired the roads. They didn't repair the sidewalks.
Mm-hmm.
We have a potential problem as well with some of our utility poles being in the middle of the sidewalks.
Right.
So if I have seen people in their wheelchairs on the road, which is very dangerous because, you should be on the
Right.
sidewalk. And I remember years ago when my son was, I have an autistic child. And, I was pushing him through Christiansted town with a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I understood how difficult that was
Right.
because we couldn't navigate the cobblestones. I had to take the wheelchair up and carry him in one hand and the wheelchair and the stroller in the other hand.
Wow.
And that has not changed.
No.
That
And
has not
your
changed.
son is now
He is 24
beyond
years
carrying
old.
age.
He is 24 years old.
Wow. Yeah.
So that access, and it's not just access in those public spaces. You need access for people to get into their homes. You need access for people to get into buildings for employment or for services.
Right.
And that's both the private sector and the government sectors.
Right.
So it's an overall way that we need to look at what's affecting us in the community.
Right.
And those things should be just pretty standard, like I said,
Right.
like my glasses is.
Right.
So we don't even have to have a discussion about that. So
Right.
when you put a new building down, you need to provide the access.
Right.
You
Right.
know.
No. Yeah. No. Point well taken. Every year, I know that the Disability Rights Center conducts a survey,
Yes.
and I'm curious as to what did you learn from last year's survey from the community? Because we go around and you ask people, what are some things you'd like the Disability Rights Center to do? Yeah. What did you learn?
And what we learned that the mental health was the biggest challenge for people in the community, both the people who are receiving services and families of the people who are receiving services. And I think that accounted for about 89% of what the community would like to see happen or change for people with disabilities. The next big thing was to provide assistance to people with disability so that they could advocate for themselves. Because a lot of people with disability want to do things for themselves.
Absolutely.
you know,
Right.
and they can. And some of them just need that access. Some of them just need assisted technology, whether it's a walking stick or glasses like me.
Or training.
Or training,
Right,
yes.
right.
Yes. That's a key thing, especially in the employment side of things. And it's doable. And this is what sometimes annoys me a little bit because these are things that are doable.
Right.
You
Right.
know.
Right. So those are some key figures that
Yeah.
we're amenable to, and it's not like the organization hasn't attempted to address them.
Yes.
What are some things that the Disability Rights Center had done in the area of mental health advocacy?
Well, for us, the biggest thing, I think, many years ago, we formed a coalition with NAMI, National
Alliance on
Mental Illness. Both the St. Croix St. Thomas chapters,
Right.
Developmental Disabilities Council, and we put together a case, and we did win that case. But as of today, the key component of that case is to get a comprehensive
Right.
case management system put in place.
Right.
So that if you see somebody with a mental illness, or if somebody has a mental illness, they can go advocate for themselves. They have the providers that they can get in. They are being monitored. Make sure that if they have to get meds or whatever it is, if they need assistance for employment, if they need assistance for housing, which is important, because that's one of the key things with people with mental illness, is to be able to say, let us find somewhere where you can get shelter first.
Right.
Let you get situated, get your life back together, get your legs under you.
Right.
And those are the key things for us, for me, and for our organization, to make sure that we have a comprehensive plan that encompasses all segments of mental illness, not just one.
and the plan exists.
Yes,
it's just
it
a matter
does.
of implementing the
Exactly.
plan.
This is what I said.
Right.
We've won the case.
Right.
There's a plan that was developed. It has just not been implemented. Now, we've had the hurricanes that affected some of the stages of that implementation, and then they were...
I'm not buying that.
Well, listen for 1 second.
Okay.
All I'm
All
saying is that there was a committee that was put in place, an implementation committee, and they started doing some work. And it should have continued. I don't see how the hurricane should have stopped that.
Right.
But, with everything else that has happened with us.
Right.
And that's another thing. Again, we're talking about individuals with disability. That gets put on the back burner. And that's the reason why I wanted to say that's one of the other things that gets put back. I'm sure if it was something else, it would have been in the forefront of things to do.
Yeah, like well, we won't go down that road. Let me stay out of trouble here. I know the organization was also very interested in airline access.
Yes.
And your office provided a beautiful brochure called Access for All, Traveler Rights and Airline Contacts.
And that started with you many years ago.
Oh, boy.
Still continues.
Yes, it still continues.
And I remember speaking to one of the engineers or the chief engineer, I think, at
Port Authority.
And he was saying, that's part of our plan, to get jet bridges in place. There have been so many incidences of people being left on the airline, not being able to get down those stairs. We call ourselves a tourist destination.
I know, right.
The same thing happens with the taxis as well.
Yeah.
I've literally seen people being shoved into taxis.
Wow.
When if you are going to provide that service, you should, under ADA, provide access to get into a taxi.
Right.
Whether it's a Lyft or whatever you're using.
Right.
So we have a ways to go with a lot of those things, and they need to happen, and they need to happen now, especially now with the jet bridges.
Right.
Both airports are making improvements.
Correct.
So now is the perfect time to do those things.
Correct. Do we know where we are? In fact, your brochure lists telephone numbers for each of the airlines that provide services here in the Virgin Islands.
Yes.
Where you can, make your request or, for more accessible
travel. Because if you're traveling, you should call the airline and make sure that they have they provide access for you. Whether it's if you need a wheelchair or you need assistance getting up to the aircraft. I know many years ago they used to have sort of like a little ramp.
Yeah.
I don't see that anymore.
The hurricane messed it up. It was a ramp, a switchback.
Yes.
That was it JetBlue? JetBlue used a lot.
Yeah. And that was very helpful to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's not just people in wheelchairs.
Everybody.
It's everybody.
Yeah.
Because I have knee issues and I would prefer not to go up those stairs.
Right.
So that's key for us this year as one of the things that we want to see happen.
Okay. Again, it's win-win,
Yep.
When the disability community wins, everybody
wins.
Everybody wins. We also do work with parents of children with disabilities. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we have some funding through the Department of Education. And we have what is called parent centers. And within those parent centers, we provide training and outreach services to parents with children with disabilities, IEPs,
Which is
individuals.
education plan.
Educational plans.
Every child has one.
Every child has one.
Right. If you are a child
the
with a
reason
disability.
I'm laughing is I always try to say the words out before the acronyms.
Right.
And I forgot this time. And that plan really it's set up where the kids with disabilities must get special instructions. And there's a plan set, and it's measurable.
Right.
You have intervals where you have meetings with the parents and the teachers and so forth. So for us, we provide assistance to parents. Any parent who would want us to be part of this meeting to make sure that their rights are not being violated. We provide that service. The 401 plan, the 504 plan, which is similar, and it's on a different act, is more of for accommodations,
Right.
Not necessarily specialized instructions. So we want to make sure that child gets that accommodation. You track the progress to make sure that they're succeeding in their educational endeavors. Right. So that's the difference.
Right. And it's so important. I mean, another thing that you had made mention of before the show was the whole notion of transition.
Yes.
You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. That's also involved not just on the part with the parent-teacher training grant that we have, but also vocational rehab. And I mean, I can speak personally because I have a sister with a disability, and she's just at home.
Right.
She got out of school and that's it.
Yeah.
And
that
she's
happens
40-something years old.
Wow.
She can talk. She can walk. She can use her hands.
Yep.
She can do things.
Yeah.
So why isn't she a gainful member of our society?
Right.
So what we've started doing with our work is to ensure that we start a little earlier to help parents, to help students transition from school
To work. Or career. Right.
or career, whatever it is they choose to do.
Right.
And you can start as early as 13 years old. So you don't have to wait till 18
Right.
and figure out that,
Yeah.
So from early, the child can learn or decide, this is what I want to do, and work with VR to make sure that happens.
Right. With voc rehab. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that, again, another brochure that the Disability Rights Center has
Yes.
created is a guide to, there's an online program called ONET or site, ONET online. And what's really interesting about it is that you can just imagine yourself as whatever you want to be. And the website gives you pointers as to, okay, these are the skills you need. This is what education level you need. And as one of the workers in our office, Shami would say, okay, how much money can you get? And it would give you,
Right.
a range of how much you can earn given this kind of, job that you are looking for. It's a site that's sponsored by the U.S. Department of Labor. And it's www.onetonline.org. I don't know why. ONETONLINE.org. And it just helps you explore.
Right.
It's not a commitment. It's free. And so one of the services is
we have a brochure that has all that information on it.
And training.
In a very concise manner.
Right.
So you can take that and go to the site.
Yep.
And that's key, because from an early age you get that child thinking about what they would like to be, how, and where does that fit in? What are the requirements?
Right.
Most importantly.
Right.
And that's key. And we use that as a training tool, especially with our employer roundtable. We use that a lot with that.
Tell us about that employer roundtable.
Well, and that's something that started out of, as you mentioned earlier on, with many things originated because we were trying to provide access for people with disabilities and so forth. During the pandemic, it's very difficult to do in-person training.
Right.
So we tried to figure out what can we do. And Shami was instrumental in that.
Shami Carr from our office.
From our office. So we came up with this idea about how do we get to pull together the job seekers, people with disability, and their prospective employers. And it has been very successful. First, not just with the government, the personnel department, Department of Labor. We have private recruitment firms.
Right, like
that have been
Island
part of it.
Therapies, I know,
Island Therapies,
has done
yes.
some recruiting. Yep.
Yes, through that. And all we've done, the Ritz-Carlton Hotel was part of our employer roundtable.
Right.
And they speak a lot about what they're looking for in a prospective employee, what the process is. So that helps. And they're right there. They answer all the questions. They provide their contact information. They tell you where they have any job openings. Mutiny Vodka and St. Croix did one of our roundtables as well.
Okay.
So we always try to mesh the private and public sector. So it gives you a broader spectrum of employers to choose from,
Right.
based upon what you're looking for.
Which is very important,
Yeah.
because you don't want people to feel that, you're relegated to only certain
Exactly.
positions.
Exactly.
So, we take a broad approach. Yeah. The other thing that our office has done was also provided training on financial literacy.
Yes.
First Bank had done a couple of trainings for us, for young people primarily.
Yes.
What's a savings account, a checking account,
Absolutely.
a debit account, a
Absolutely.
credit card?
Yeah.
What are the pros and cons of each? Because we've noticed that young people would benefit from that.
And that coincides with us trying to get our sort of youth committee together, so that you will find it's not just us you're saying as a young person, but you're seeing somebody like yourself.
Right.
That's gone through some program, being successful with it. We have an internship program coming up soon with we're trying to do it through UVI and Upward Bound.
Okay.
And we've recruited a high school student, and he's going to be doing the recruiting
Okay.
with the people from the Upward Bound program.
Okay.
To get them to provide training to them, tell them about who we are. If there's a career that they want to get into on the social disability side. So we're trying to mesh all of that together and have the young people, and that's through a parent training grant.
Okay.
In February, we have several training set up, sensitivity trainings and overall support services for families as well, through the Department of Education.
Okay.
So that's upcoming. And then we have employers round table as well.
Okay.
Up and coming.
We got a lot going on.
Yes.
So, at the very few seconds we have left, how can somebody get in touch with your office?
Well, we have two offices on St. Croix next to Kmart West. That building that you see there, it looks like it's shuttered. It's not. We just pull our hurricane shutters on
Don't
every
let those
day.
shutters discourage you.
Please call us 340-772-1200. On St. Thomas at Havenside, the number is 776-4303.
Excellent. Angus Drigo, thank you so much. You've done a lot of work. There's more work to be done, but thank you so much for bringing us up to speed on the work of the Disability Rights Center. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJX, its board, staff, or underwriters.